are spending a little bit of time in the Old Town Plaza of downtown Albuquerque. I cannot believe how much this feels like little towns we have visited in Mexico. The central de Armas Plaza is a staple in small Mexican towns, and it's got this here with the gazebo, and then all around the square are little shops and restaurants. Wow, it's uncanny how much it feels like Mexico here. And I think New Mexico feels more like Mexico than Texas does. Texas has its own culture, but I feel like, even though I've only been in New Mexico for a couple of days, I feel like it has a very Mexican feel here. I love it. We're at the Albuquerque Museum, just walking around the outside on our little downtown walking tour. And this statue, or statues here, is really interesting. It's commemorating the hundreds of families in 1598 who came up from Mexico to settle what it was at that time the northernmost part of the Spanish territory of Mexico. And these families came up here and settled in northern New Mexico and Albuquerque. It's a really beautiful sculpture. I like looking at it. Now, to my point earlier about the weather here, this morning it was 40 degrees when I walked down to the office to get some mail, and I was in my winter coat and gloves. And now it's 2:30 in the afternoon and I am sweating. I've got a short sleeve shirt on, Jason's got shorts on. This sun is no joke. There's no clouds in the sky, and the sun is so warm and beautiful, so I can see that the temperatures wildly fluctuate in
it's up
in
to
this
72
area.
right now.
Yeah, feels
Nice.
great. The other thing that I did not expect when I came to New Mexico was to see fall colors. There are plenty of deciduous trees here that are turning color and the leaves are dropping, so that was really a surprise to us. And also the mountains around here. I always thought of New Mexico as desert, and of course in the southern part of the state it is more deserty. But this is actually the bottom of the Rocky Mountain Range. Santa Fe, which is about an hour and a half north of here, is the last of the, I think, 3,000 peaks. The 3,000-foot peaks of the Rockies end at Santa Fe. So down here, these hills and these rocky outcroppings here are the very bottom of the Rocky Mountains. I was not expecting that. New Mexico is really surprising us, and I really like looking at the landscape here. It's fun. We're out for a little hike today in northern Albuquerque at the Petroglyph National Monument. Now, you may not know, but in addition to the national parks that are in the United States, there are things called national park units. So the United States has 423 national park units, and 63 of those are national parks. So a national park is like Acadia National Park in Maine, Yosemite, Yellowstone, you've all heard of those things. Well, a national park unit is something like a national monument, a battlefield, a historic site, things like that. So there's 423 of them around the country. So we were excited to find this one here. Petroglyphs, of course, are kind of ancient drawings on rocks and caves that were left about 400 to 700 years ago by Native Americans and Spanish explorers. So this particular hike, as part of the National Monument, has about 400 visible petroglyphs that we can see. Now, we went down to the Visitors Center just a few minutes ago to kind of get our bearings and get some maps and things, but there are no trails at the Visitors Center. You have to drive out and there's like 4 different trails you can drive out to. So this is the farthest one. We drove about 15 minutes up here. It's the northernmost one, but it has the most petroglyphs that we can see, and the parking is free here. It's kind of in a little neighborhood, which is nice to see the neighborhood too and see the houses, but we're gonna take a 1.5 mile hike here to see some petroglyphs. The hike that we're taking today is called the Piedras Marcadas Canyon hike, and the rocks in this part of New Mexico are actually made of lava. We were driving on the highway the other day and we were looking at these black rocks everywhere, and I said, that almost looks like lava, but that couldn't be, you know, were there any volcanoes here? I'd never heard of that before, but they are ancient volcanoes, and that's why the black rocks are here everywhere, and it makes them conducive to scratching etchings and petroglyphs into them. Now, petroglyphs can symbolize all kinds of different things. The sign that we saw said the spiral shape can represent nature, so wind, rain, sky, that kind of thing, spirituality. A handprint might represent the carver or human. And then, of course, there's all kinds of different symbols for animals and farming and things like that can be hard to interpret, and some of them were just only known to whoever carved them, sort of like doodles or an artwork that an individual might create. I saw a little critter running over the rocks. I didn't catch him. Here's a critter hole. Found him. This one looks like a scene, maybe some fish bones hanging down below and a sun up above. That squiggly part on the left may be, I don't know, water, a river?
Top there.
Some good detailed people in this section. There's a guy with his hands up, maybe a headdress. There's a person with a 4-legged animal above. Some more animals over here.
Yes, got a deer.
We decided to walk back through the little neighborhood. There was an exit from the trail into this neighborhood because we like to see the different kinds of architecture of houses in different parts of the country. Look at this beautiful red tree. It almost looks like a Japanese maple, but I've never seen a red Japanese that big. Maybe that's what it is. Here's another one. Pretty fall colors. driven about an hour and a half north of Albuquerque today to the city of Santa Fe, which is way up in the mountains, and it's even higher than Albuquerque. I told you before that Albuquerque was about 5,300 feet above sea level. Santa Fe is 7,200 feet, almost a mile and a half above sea level. And it's a beautiful little town. It feels very hip. There's lots of younger people here and nice shopping districts and stores. It looks like the city is kept up really nicely. And there's some great history here. Of course, the Spanish and Mexican history is also here in Santa Fe. We are in the Santa Fe Plaza, which is in the middle of the old part of the city. And this plaza was originally the fort that was tied to the governor's mansion here somewhere. And there was two famous trails that ended here. The Santa Fe Trail came from Missouri to here to New Mexico, and the El Camino Real, which I think there's different El Camino trails, but one of them started in Mexico City and came to Santa Fe. So historically in the 15 and 1600s, this was a hub of trading and commerce for the Spanish and the Mexicans and the people in this area. We're doing our walking tour of Santa Fe, and again, like we felt in Albuquerque, such memories of Mexico are coming back to us just with the way the towns are laid out and the architecture and the hot sun. And I pulled out my mosquito hat today because I forgot my baseball hat, but the sun is really direct and strong. But beautiful city. Here's an important tip that I've learned on these long day trips is to bring food with you. Now I know that that's a no-brainer, but if you are like me and you start to get hangry a couple hours into the day and it's hot out and you've been driving and walking for a long time, you don't want to be forced to stop at an expensive bakery where you need to get something sugary, or you need to drive somewhere to get food because you're just, exhausted. So this morning I packed a lunch for myself and some snacks for Jason. He doesn't get as hangry as I do, but I packed a lunch, and right before we arrived in Santa Fe, I ate that in the truck, and now I'm gonna have my little granola bar that I've been carrying with me because it's just not a good situation when you're trying to have a nice day and your low blood sugar ruins it. So I'm glad I've learned this lesson to always carry food with me. The oldest church structure in the USA. Wow. I'm not sure what makes this the oldest house in the USA because it says 1646, and I have to believe that there are houses in New England that are older than that.
Jamestown.
But Jason says maybe the houses in New England from them are not standing anymore, but I don't buy it. I'm gonna look it up. So this is a little two-room house here next to the San Miguel Mission Church, which we'll go in a second. But it says outside that it's the oldest house in the United States, 1646. And I question that because New England, of course, was settled long before that. So when I look online, it says that the Fairbanks House in Dedham, Massachusetts, which was built in 1637, is the oldest timber frame house in the United States. And this one, I didn't find definitively, but it may be because some portions of the walls used to build this house date from pre-Spanish Pueblo era, and that would make it older. So I guess technically you could say it's the oldest, but I'm still sticking with Massachusetts. The story is kind of the same over here at the San Miguel Mission Chapel. They're calling this the oldest church in the United States because it was originally built around 1610, but only a little bit of that original building still stands. So technically you could call it the oldest church.
All of you can ring this bell. We have a rubber mallet, and you can strike the bell with this, and it sounds divine. So don't be shy. Be a little kid again.
Good.
We stopped into the Loretto Chapel here. There's a $5 admission fee, but I wanted to see it because a friend of mine recommended it to me as a place to see in Santa Fe. There's a stairway inside that's a circular stairway. It has three 360-degree turns in it, and it's famous because it's called the Miraculous Stairway. So this church was built in 1873, And the original architect planned to build a spiral staircase in there, but he died before it could be finished. And then there was nuns who were here at the church. So one day a stranger came in and offered to build the stairs, never gave his name, never took any money for the project. He built this spiral staircase with no center support in it, so it's kind of freestanding, and then he left. So the sisters called it the Miraculous Stairway. Now these railings and other supports that are on here were added later, but the original staircase only had the stairs in it. It looks pretty cool. All over Santa Fe are these chilies that are hanging, and I found out that they are hatch chilies. There's green and red ones, but they hang all over, I assume as decoration, but they also use them in the restaurants and then local cuisine. And they remind us of the paprika chilies that are hanging all over Hungary. We visited Hungary for our 25th anniversary a few years ago, and we were so impressed by the beautiful chilies that were hanging everywhere, so this reminds us of that. Canyon Road is the arts district of Santa Fe. It's right outside the historical plaza area, and there are over 100 art galleries here. Most of them are housed in these old Pueblo style houses, and it looks like a really fun walk if you're into art.
All right, we're doing these in big chunks now.
To the big boy states.
Well, nailed it again.
Pretty.
Very nice.